me versus Ilia, there's loads of history in it. There's bad blood. Apart from John Jones Aspinall, I think that's the biggest fight the UFC could make.
Paddy Pimblett took a jab at Ilia Topuria, suggesting the size difference with Charles Oliveira could shake him.
That 10 pounds difference is a big difference. 145 to 155. Charles is like my height. Ilia's like down here. I'm a fan of Charles, so I think I want Charles to win.
Paddy Pimblett didn't hold back when asked about Ilia Topuria's chances against Charles Oliveira at UFC 317. The outspoken Liverpool native stirred the pot by claiming Topuria might be overwhelmed by the physical size difference once he sees Oliveira across the octagon. For Pimblett, a known rival of the Spanish-Georgian fighter, the 10-pound jump to lightweight could be a major disadvantage for the undefeated Topuria. He warned that the leap in size and power between featherweight and lightweight is significant, hinting that Topuria could face a reality check when the cage door closes.
Do you think Ilia beats Charles then?
I think he might, to be honest. Charles is a bit chinny, isn't he? You know what I mean? He's had about 40 fights or something. He always gets punched. He always gets cracked.
Yeah. So, he's reckless, but he's super exciting.
Yeah, he is.
And he's dangerous.
Exciting. If he gets him down, I can see him winning, because that 10 pounds difference is a big difference.
Yeah.
145 to 155, it's a big difference. People don't understand that because they don't watch the sport or they're not involved in the sport. But that 10 pounds makes a big difference. And especially, like, Charles is like my height. Ilia's like down here when I stand up. You know what I mean? So it's gonna make a big difference. Like, Ilia might get a bit of a fright at how big Charles is.
Pimblett's comments sparked immediate reaction. While some saw his statement as an honest breakdown of weight class dynamics, others couldn't help but interpret it as another chapter in the ongoing feud between the two fighters. Paddy and Ilia have long had bad blood, and any chance to throw verbal jabs has rarely been missed. Many fans believe that Pimblett's words were as much about psychological warfare as they were about real fight analysis.
When you see Paddy, he's dancing like this. He seems silly, but then he people up.
He people up like Michael Chandler. Who did he face?
Well, he hasn't faced anyone that good yet,
like,
but he f***ed up Michael Chandler better than Charles Oliveira did.
Charles, if he finds some adversity, he's gonna go to the ground and he's gonna be waiting till you end the fight.
The rivalry between the two is far from settled, and there's real momentum behind a future showdown. Topuria has already mentioned he would love to make Pimblett his first title defense, assuming he gets past Oliveira. On the other side, Pimblett is convinced he's one win away from his own shot at UFC Gold. His target is Justin Gaethje, with hopes of fighting him by the end of 2025. If both men stay victorious, a title bout between them in Europe could set new records for the UFC, with fan engagement already sky high.
With that in mind then, because we've got Dustin and Max matched up, does that leave you and Justin Gaethje to dance next?
Yeah, that'd be nice. It would. But I was thinking about it today, it's probably better for me if Ilia wins the belt now, because he'll probably call me out.
Yeah, that's
and then I could just fight him. Well, he might even have to fight Gaethje, but just end up fighting Topuria. But I don't know who I want to win, lad. I'm a fan of Charles, so I think I want Charles to win, but it's probably better for my career if Ilia wins, because I'll more than likely be his first title defense. So I don't know. You know what I mean? But yeah, like, I know for the fact that if I beat Gaethje, I'm next in line. Definitely.
Do you think that's the next fight for you?
It could be, yeah. It's just if he says yeah or not, isn't it? You know what I mean? Because he's fighting down the rankings again.
And do you have a target date in mind?
Yeah, Abu Dhabi, October. That pay-per-view. That's when I want to fight. That's when I'll be gearing towards. And after what I've done to Chandler, I think I've finished Justin Gaethje.
As for the clash at UFC 317, the stakes couldn't be higher. Scheduled to headline the promotion's flagship International Fight Week card on June 28th in Las Vegas, it's a collision between two of the UFC's most exciting stars. Oliveira, the former lightweight champion, is hungry to reclaim the belt he once held. Topuria, fresh off his featherweight title conquest, is chasing history as he attempts to become a two-division champion with an undefeated record still intact.
If Ilia Topuria fights Charles Oliveira on a pay-per-view, that's a big deal.
Oh, it's gonna be a bigger fight.
They don't need to wait for an interim belt. They don't need to wait for an undisputed. So yeah, I don't know how he's gonna do it lightweight though. Maybe you can speak on that. He's a smaller guy coming up.
It's a smaller coming up. It'll be interesting because he is bigger. From when I heard him on the Joe Rogan podcast, like 191, I think he was walking around. It's massive. So for him to cut to 145 seems almost like, how did he do that?
Yep.
But now that he's grown up to 155, I always like when athletes go up.
Despite Topuria's smaller frame, his track record against bigger opponents has been impressive. A key example was his fight against Jai Herbert at lightweight. Herbert was knocked out by Topuria in emphatic fashion. That bout proved Ilia could not only compete at 155 pounds, but also carry his trademark power up a division. His striking precision, speed, and fearlessness have made him one of the most feared rising stars in the UFC.
Yeah, so dangerous. When he hits you, it's different than anybody, especially with his hands. His boxing is so high level. Ilia has superior technique. His hooks are perfect. His distance management is perfect. He's just really, really good. And he's the new guard, right? Like every generation comes up with a new guy who's a new high water mark of technique. He doesn't have any disadvantages. He doesn't have any weaknesses, man. There's people that are thinking maybe he's the best pound for pound fighter alive. It's close. He might be the best.
Pimblett's warning about the size difference, though controversial, isn't without precedent. Lightweight is filled with fighters known for their durability and knockout power. Charles Oliveira is no exception. Known as Du Bronx, the Brazilian has one of the most well-rounded resumes in UFC history. His 35 wins include victories over elite names such as Michael Chandler, Beneil Dariush, and Justin Gaethje. He showcased devastating submissions and unexpected knockout power. Many remember how he dropped Gaethje at UFC 274 before securing a choke, a moment that stunned fans and Gaethje himself.
I hit him, he went down to his back, pulled guard. Gaethje hit him, hurt him, he went down to the guard. Poirier hit him, hurt him, and he went down to guard. He was knowingly forcing himself to go to the guard and forcing you to make a decision. Okay, you hit me. Okay, I went down. Now come into my world. And most guys don't go on top of him.
Backstage footage from UFC 274 later revealed Gaethje telling Oliveira that he hits harder than expected. That power is something Oliveira is leaning on heavily heading into the Topuria fight. He's confident that while Topuria hits hard, it's nothing he hasn't seen before. Oliveira believes his hands hold fire and that he has the tools to finish Ilia quickly. In fact, he's boldly predicted a knockout win, something no one has ever managed against the undefeated Spaniard.
You know, my last fight, Charles was brilliant, and he hurt me often. He hurt me early. 10 seconds in, I was, really hurt. And probably 4 times after that, I felt something I've never felt in a cage. So, it was just one of those fights where, it was against adversity the whole time.
I was going to ask about that. I think after the fight, the cameras picked you up saying, you hit really hard when you guys were both leaving the octagon. So did that catch you off guard that how powerful and crisp his striking was?
Yeah, I mean, it's a feeling. It was a feeling I've never felt. Usually you get hit, call it a buzz, call it a flash. And this is more like my tongue just went on a super powerful battery. And it just, my entire body, it was crazy.
Topuria's rise has been meteoric, but not without bumps. A surprising twist came just weeks ahead of UFC 317 when he reportedly made a coaching change. This decision raised concerns among analysts, including UFC Hall of Famer Daniel Cormier. Cormier questioned why Topuria would make such a significant adjustment right before the biggest fight of his career. Although he didn't accuse Topuria of wrongdoing, Cormier warned that a shift in coaching chemistry at such a late stage could be costly, especially in terms of in-cage execution and strategy.
Wants to fight Islam, but needs to get through Charles Oliveira first, especially, guys, when we are hearing that he and his team are kind of going in separate directions. Just because of the schedule. They said it's no bad blood. I really don't know how, at this point, a month before what will be your opportunity to win a second title, how much effect that will have on Team Topuria. Honestly, if I'm Ilia, I'm still just using those guys. Because even if I have to do my training camp with someone else, I know that those guys know me so well that if they can get with me for a week, 2 weeks, we are still so aligned, especially if there's no bad blood. We're still so aligned that we will get through the fight and we will still be able to coexist. Not only coexist, but also we gel, right? This is a team that got this guy from a young man to being 16-0 or 17-0 UFC champion, beating 2 of the greatest featherweights of all time, right? So to have that familiarity is very important to an athlete. A lot of times we see athletes switch teams, all these things as they get down later into their career. This man is still in the heart of his career. So there is something to the idea that we have grown so much that we can't come together and collaborate on what is going to be one of the biggest moments of his entire fight career, especially knowing that those guys have trained him since he was like 15 years old. To me, that's a little bit.
Michael Bisping weighed in with a more optimistic take. Though he acknowledged that challenging Oliveira so early in his lightweight journey might be bold, he believes Topuria has what it takes to win. Bisping even suggested that a victory could set the stage for a massive future clash, perhaps even against Islam Makhachev, assuming Makhachev moves up to welterweight and defeats Jack Della Maddalena. The UFC would likely jump at the opportunity to pit two dominant champions against each other if Topuria continues his unbeaten streak.
Ilia versus Charles do Bronx Oliveira. We know Charles, he's a dangerous, aggressive son of a bitch. He's gonna walk forward, punch his knees, elbows, he'll lock on a submission. Ilia, this is his first fight at lightweight, and with the punching power of Ilia Topuria, the boxing that he has, the footwork that he has, and the Greco-Roman wrestling, it wouldn't surprise me if Ilia pulls it off.
However, not everyone is sold on Makhachev's absence from the lightweight scene. Chael Sonnen went as far as to call the Dagestani fighter a coward for not defending the title against Topuria. Daniel Cormier quickly came to Makhachev's defense, suggesting the move up in weight is more about longevity and health than fear. He called out Sonnen for possibly trolling, making it clear that Makhachev's motivations are purely professional and strategic.
That's not a sign of courage, that's a sign of cowardice. I know this is your friend, DC. I think of Islam as my friend too. But let's think of what happened. You have an undefeated, #1 ranked world champion who's chasing you down. He is willing to leave his division behind. He's willing to walk away from his belt to chase you down. You are so interested in getting away from this guy that you not only leave your belt, you leave your division, and the whole thing is only contingent that you don't have to fight Islam. Not for nothing. This is not the way champions conduct themselves. That's not a sign of courage. That's a sign of cowardice.
While Makhachev remains a looming figure, the immediate spotlight is on Oliveira and Topuria. Former fighter and analyst Kenny Florian offered a very specific breakdown of how the fight could play out. He compared Topuria's inside boxing to that of boxing legend Canelo Alvarez, highlighting his ability to dominate in close-range exchanges. Florian emphasized that Oliveira's biggest vulnerability lies in that same space. Historically, when Oliveira has lost, it has often come from damage inflicted in tight boxing-style firefights. In that range, Topuria might have the upper hand and could potentially end the bout with his powerful hooks and combinations.
We got a fight for International Fight Week, Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira. Most important question, who will have the better suit on fight day? Because we're talking I would say top 5 pound-for-pound dressers in the UFC.
Absolutely. Well, it's so interesting, right? Because, sometimes you can tell a lot about someone, the way that they dress a little bit. And you have Charles Oliveira, who, is very flashy. He'll certainly be the more colorful guy in the suit. He always comes with like a green or a red or something wild, hair dyed, all that stuff. And then Ilia Topuria kind of like, your clean, kind of normal type suits, but everything, really well done. And that's kind of the way that they both fight. There's a lot of flash to what Charles Oliveira does. A lot of things really stand out. Whereas with Ilia Topuria, he does a lot of things that are very much rooted in fundamentals, but he has mastered those fundamentals. So a lot of those things, it's like, he's wearing just a regular black suit. You're like, oh, it's like a really fancy Gucci one-off or something. You know what I mean? Like the things that he does in the cage are hard to really appreciate unless you're looking underneath the hood. And this is a guy whose fundamentals are just so damn good. And you're starting to see it, obviously, with, I guess maybe not starting, but we're seeing it consistently now with the way that he's winning his fights. I mean, he's knocked out the 2 greatest featherweights of all time. And it's just spectacular to watch, and he's going against a guy in Charles Oliveira who always delivers exciting fights. He's a finisher on the ground, he's a finisher on the feet, so I think that's setting up to be a spectacular main event.
Former bantamweight champion Aljamain Sterling offered a balanced perspective on the potential showdown between Charles Oliveira and Ilia Topuria, acknowledging the high-risk, high-reward nature of the fight. He emphasized Oliveira's unmatched submission record, highlighting his status as the most prolific finisher on the ground in UFC history. However, Sterling didn't shy away from pointing out a key vulnerability: Oliveira's tendency to get dropped during exchanges. While the Brazilian has shown an incredible ability to recover and rally back, Sterling questioned whether that approach would be sustainable against someone like Topuria, who possesses serious knockout power and a solid chin.
This is a hard one. I like Ilia in this one. I don't know. But it's hard to count out Du Bronx. Du Bronx is, I still think he's him. But then I said that about Max. I said that about Volk. And I'm not saying that those guys were going to win against Ilia, but you say that those guys are still them, and then Ilia goes out and does that to them. You're like,
I don't know.
It's like, who's stopping this guy?
Sterling recalled Topuria's lightweight debut against Jai Herbert, where the Spaniard briefly touched the canvas but quickly rebounded to score a knockout. Since moving up to 155 pounds, Topuria has looked more dangerous than ever, showcasing improved strength and striking. Sterling saw this as a major concern for Oliveira, especially if he takes early damage in the fight. He also touched on the grappling aspect, noting that Oliveira could potentially try to slow the pace by forcing a ground battle. However, Sterling pointed out that Topuria's grappling defense remains largely untested at the elite level, making the fight even harder to predict.
Where's Oliveira better than Ilia? Well, the jiu-jitsu. But like, where is Oliveira like the much better fighter?
I don't know. Maybe the grappling department.
Is he much better though?
I don't know. We haven't really seen Ilia's grappling, so it's really hard to say. I mean, he got that one choke against Bryce Mitchell. But outside of that, I mean, he had a little bit of a grappling exchange, but it was a short notice fight against Yusuf Zalal in his debut. And that was a really close fight, a little bit of some back and forth. But where Oliveira is the best, I think, is his grappling. But he's also relies so much on his toughness, his chin, willing to go forward, step into the fire, willing to take one and give one. But I don't know if Ilia is the guy you want to take one to give one with. That's just not this just doesn't seem like the guy you want to exchange punches with.
Meanwhile, respected coach Tim Welch shared a more cautious outlook on the matchup. From his perspective, booking Topuria against Oliveira ahead of a potential title opportunity might be too risky. Welch focused on the stylistic clash between the two fighters, particularly Oliveira's aggressive, upright approach that includes forward pressure and knee strikes, which contrasts with Topuria's more compact, boxing-heavy stance. That difference in style, according to Welch, could lead to danger for Topuria if not managed properly, raising the question of whether this particular fight is the right move at this stage in his career.
That's a dangerous fight. Merab calls it stupid to make Ilia Topuria fight Charles Oliveira before Islam Makhachev.
How is that?
Ilia Topuria says he got promised that he would fight for the title if he vacates.
By who? The security guard outside his room?
Yeah, he kind of hinted that he got promised that. I feel like Charles, Ilia,
that'd be fire.
I think Ilia might batter him. The way Charles comes forward with those reckless knees,
and he's got the chin floating up high too.
Stands up tall like a really tall Muay Thai guy, and Ilia's like a low boxer. That's a dangerous fight for Charles.
MMA analyst Luke Thomas also weighed in, expressing that while the most exciting matchup would have been Topuria against Islam Makhachev, the Oliveira fight is still a highly entertaining alternative. For Thomas, the stylistic intrigue and unpredictability of Oliveira versus Topuria make it a fight fans should genuinely look forward to. He also expressed interest in the broader picture, particularly Makhachev's possible move to welterweight. From Thomas's point of view, that transition opens up exciting opportunities for new matchups against the likes of Jack Della Maddalena, Sean Brady, or even Khamzat Chimaev, fights that could shake up two divisions and keep fans deeply engaged.
Or Hobocop, I should say, Gregory Rodriguez, and then Viviane Araujo taking on Tracy Cortez in the flyweight division. Again, more bouts to be announced, I'm sure, in the coming days and weeks, perhaps. So that was the big part. Let's talk about this fight for just a second. I know people were, listen, I've been very consistent about this. The number one fight that could have been made among all permutations was Islam Ilia. That's the best fight that could have been made. But the point I've been trying to make is that while that would be the most desirable one to choose, it's not like you're getting something bad even though you're not getting it. In other words, Topuria against Oliveira for the lightweight belt is fire. I don't care what anybody else says. It's fire. And then I've been saying this whole time, Islam going up to 170 and seeing how he matches up there with Della Maddalena, potentially Brady, potentially Rachmanov, potentially Gary, potentially Buckley. I mean, any number of ways in which that could go. That is incredibly exciting.
But Oliveira isn't buying into the hype. He sees himself as the veteran with far more octagon experience, and he's confident that fans are underestimating what he brings to the table. He pointed out that for over 15 years, critics have doubted him, only to be proven wrong time and again. From submission specialist to knockout artist, Oliveira has evolved into one of the most dangerous fighters in any weight class.
Então, eu tô em busca do título. Eu não corro de ninguém, nunca corri, não vai ser agora que eu vou correr. Eu tô pronto para lutar contra qualquer um desses caras, né? Respeito todos eles, mas vou imprimir meu ritmo e meu jogo. Por que não, né? Se for pelo título, por que não lutar com o Topuria? Eu tô em busca do título, eu não quero fazer mais uma luta para poder esperar o título, não. Para mim isso não me interessa, eu quero lutar pelo título.
What are your thoughts on Ilia Topuria and Ilia Topuria as a fighter? How do you feel about just the overall fight?
É uma grande luta. Ele é um grande lutador, mas eu não preciso falar mais nada para ninguém de quem eu sou, o que eu já fiz dentro da cage. Essa outra chegou na oportunidade gigantesca. Eu vou nocautear esse cara. Essa é ela.
Who's gonna knock this guy out?
Regardless of the outcome, UFC 317 is shaping up to be one of the most electric cards of the year. The matchup combines youth versus experience, speed versus savviness, and raw knockout power versus slick submissions. The fight's outcome could send shockwaves across the sport, altering title contention dynamics and setting up blockbuster matchups in 2026. If Topuria wins, his momentum could lead straight to a title defense against Pimblett, turning their long-standing rivalry into a championship feud that headlines a European UFC event. If Oliveira wins, he re-establishes himself as one of the greatest lightweights ever, potentially forcing a rematch with Makhachev, or creating fresh matchups that shake up the entire division. Until June 28th, the speculation and trash talk will continue. But when the cage door shuts in Las Vegas, only one man will leave with gold around his waist. Whether it's the undefeated phenom or the seasoned legend, UFC 317 promises fireworks, and perhaps a new king at 155 pounds.